Good morning. This is Spirit Journey. I'm going to talk about sexual harassment. Now, last night I posted a video regarding Terry Crews, an actor who was um, sexually harassed by someone who he didn't even know. He knew of him. It was an agent of his, the top person in the company for the we call it actors or some movie division. And I thought it took a lot of courage for Terry Crews to come forward. I commend him. I commend him. And people like him to come forward because it takes a lot. Now, I want to talk about what happened to me in business. Now, I'm not any performer or anything like that. I'm just a regular person. And I used to work, I'm going to talk about two industries that I was in. One of the industries, I work for a utilities company, and this is in the island of St. Thomas. That's in the US Virgin Islands. And I remember I know I did a video talking about, when they had the hurricane and why I felt a little funny about it. I mean, I don't want any harm to anybody, but I was uncomfortable because it stirred up a lot of memories. Even though there are many nice people on that island of St. Thomas, it was a living hell, the thing that happened to me. Again, St. Thomas is a small island. It has just a few thousand people. I don't know the exact number, but I live in a major city that has several million people. So the comparison is not the same. However, even though it had fewer people, it has the same type of problems that a major city would have. Everything is on a smaller scale. Okay, you can go from one neighborhood to another in just a couple of seconds when you're in a car. It's just a total different environment. So what happened to me was this. I'm not going to give the name of the company, but who knows? Maybe later on I just might. Um, I worked for a utilities company, and I worked with men and women, but I worked in the pretty much like the engineering division, like it had the men in the like that the technical people, and at that time initially there was all male, and then this other division that I was um, in charge of, doing the administrative assistants were all female. And I was with the company for 3 years. And then the last 6 months, I was on sick leave. So one day, well, the division had gotten a transfer. People, the, many of the people were what they call union employees. I was non-union. And so with union, when they want to downsize the people, they get, how you say, the rather than firing them, if they have more seniority over somebody else, they can boot them out of the job. So this is what happened in one situation. A person was going to be fired, but then they were able to boot out somebody and get in, and they worked in my department. And what was that now? Now there were two men, and now they were with the company for many years, but they're new in my department, and the two of them had like, I think I was going up the stairs, and they were like catcalling me, like whistling. I didn't like that. Now, for all these 3 years that I was with that division, I pretty much was treated extremely well by my male counterpart. You know, it was just one person. Initially, he was a little biased against me because I came from the U.S. mainland, and yeah, there is biasness from people from the mainland, the U.S. mainland. It's part of the U.S. And I think originally he was from Tortola, but either way, he initially was very, kind of mean to me, but then he mellowed out and he treated me okay. And I served them all equally. And it was fun initially working with them. They're all different types of people, different personalities. And I worked alone in this room on occasion. It was like the size of a closet. Had enough room for two small desks. And then periodically, one part of the day, someone from the women's division had to use the phone in that room and the other desk. And they'll be in there for a couple of hours and then they'll leave. And they were fun to talk to. But I enjoyed working alone too. I knew what I had to do. I did my job and that was it. So these two new people, new guys, were doing that. But one of them in particular was really pushing my buttons. He kept on. And he was like flirting, overly flirting. And I was very conservative back then. And I said to him, I say, you know, um, you know, I don't like how you're talking to me. Treat me like how you treat your sister or your mom or your auntie. You're making me uncomfortable. Something to that effect. I remember saying about see me like how you see your auntie, your mom, or your sister, something like that. No, I'm not. I'm not interested. And that seemed to turn him on more. So he kept on, stronger, and think it's a big joke. So I wrote a note to him, and I told him that you better stop, or I will report you. Then he retaliates. He gave me a note and was angry. It said something about the word, what was that? I can't remember the term. But he just retaliated. And time goes on. I didn't tell my boss yet. And I didn't want to tell my boss about the situation. Oh, wait a minute. I have to keep on going forward. Well, I noticed that some of the women, well, this one in particular, was being aggressive towards me and angry and trying to pick a fight in the kitchen. I never had any run-in, and she was angry that I had the water. Like there's a sink and an oven, in the room. You can cook your food. And I was washing my dishes. You're not supposed to leave the water on. Blah, blah, blah. I'm washing my dishes. I had the water running. Blah, 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 blah. She was just picking a fight with me. And they were hostile. And I noticed that the whole atmosphere was changing against me. And then the men the men that I used to work with, just tension. And he didn't want to open the door for me. And I felt this hostility. And I knew it had to do with that guy. And so I felt being harassed. It was really, really intense. I hesitantly told my male manager. I was going to talk directly with human resources, which was a female. I would love to give her name. But I won't. But who knows? Later on, maybe I just might. But she was out that day, or she was at a meeting, and the pressure was getting to me, this hostility. So I felt forced to tell my manager, which actually is the correct protocol, since he is my immediate manager slash supervisor. He was the next person in line. And why I was hesitant to talk to him was because he was a woman beater. See, one thing when you live on an island with a few number of people, you know everybody's business. Everybody tells the stories, And one of the co-workers there that I worked with in that little room used to date the guy. And he had left the island on a vacation or something like that, and he comes back married to some other woman. And he was living with her, because initially the guy was living with my female friend. And when she finds out that he married this other woman and living with her, the guy was saying, well, I want you both. Yeah, I married her, but I want both of you. So she said no. So he beat her up and gave her a black eye. And she shared this story. People there on the island, they knew I was an outsider, from the mainland, U.S. mainland, and they felt comfortable telling me their story. And, I was very quiet, and they just felt comfortable in telling me their life story. And so I kept a mental note of that. I'm thinking, wow, a man would beat up a woman like that? And I knew that he also fooled around. He had this other mistress from another island, and she would come to the job, and, it was just nasty. She was a prostitute. So it's like I know these little secrets. But I kept quiet about it. And so I felt forced to tell him. So I go to his office. I told him what happened. And then, I don't remember what he said there. He didn't initially say anything, shocking then. And I left his room. And then next thing I had to go back in his room. He might have called me in. And then this was a different tune. He was hostile. Part of what I remember saying, what he was saying, he said, we don't like troublemakers here, that we don't want any focal points, and we remove them, something like that. And how I took it was that he was gonna, I felt he was saying he was gonna kill me. And this guy would. He was crazy. I should say, he was someone that did not, you're female. I mean, he treated me well initially when I first arrived, on the island and started working for him. Everything was very professional. But there was just one incident when something else unrelated, not sexual, but harassment. I mean, bad reviews because of something unrelated, But I just disregarded it, forgot about it, and we just, kept on working. But I think I felt forced to go to human resources. Something happened with human resources, and they turned against me. And it was a living hell from that point on. They were trying to entrap me to try to find some excuse to fire me. And I respected these women. Human resources just had females. They had the head person, two or three other ladies, young, and it was awful. Oh boy, I wish I could remember the details, but they turned against me, and I started to get sick, physically sick, because of the stress. And I know there was some other incident that happened with the guy that initially doing the cat calls. Um, oh, what was that now? But it was stressful. It was a couple of days before Christmas, I remember, and something happened. He said something to me, and then one of the ladies I shared the room with leaves, and I thought she was uh, going to tell something. I wish I could remember. Everything happened so fast, and I got angry and I reported it, and I never came back to the office again. It was the last straw. Yeah, it was just like the day before Christmas or something, and I couldn't take the stress. I had to go on sick leave, and then at one point they wanted me to, like, they used to, I think, mail my check, or I'd come to pick up my check from the payroll or something like that. And then now they didn't want me. They wanted me to come to human resources now to pick up my check. It's something like they were trying to take more control over the situation, because like the past 5 months or so, I didn't have to see anybody, just come get my check and leave. It was no problem. And I had my doctors know and everything. And so what happened now? Yeah, they said now they wanted me to see their doctor. Yeah, okay. They wanted me to see their doctors. And I knew seeing their doctors, it wasn't going to happen. I didn't trust them. And here, these were ladies that I had admired. Um, they seemed very professional, the top of the line, but not when it came to sexual harassment. And it was the women in the company, well, some of the women in the company who were actually against me. It's a lot more to the story. This happened over 25 years ago. And so, I just remember bits and pieces. But it was a living hell. And when your health suffers, just all these um, symptoms I was getting. And so when they wanted me to see their doctors for me to get my check, I said, I'm not going to play this game anymore. I'm not going to continue their game. So I went in, I typed up a letter. It was a letter of resignation. And then it had this other woman there. She was relatively new, and she was to do an exit interview and wanted me to sign these papers and like questionnaires. Do you think you would like to work for the company again? Something stupid, and your opinion or something. And I wrote that I didn't like how they handled the sexual harassment, that I was mistreated, and blah blah blah, something like that. And then I laughed. And the day I was to pick up my last check, because like in business they hold a check, so you have to like wait 2 weeks and then you get your very last check. So I went to pick up my last check, and the woman in human resources, she I came to pick up the check, and she said, "Oh, this is your check." So I put my hand out to get the check, and she goes like this, "No, I'm not going to give it to you. Give me my check. It's my money." She says, "No, I'm not going to give it to you. I'll mail it to you." Like that, being a real, you know what? Yeah, these are people I work with. They just retaliated, because also I went to the Justice Department to file a sexual harassment complaint with them. That there were other things about them, not just that guy harassing me and the ladies, but unfair practices. Like, it was like in the engineering, portion, and the men there, they advanced that they would bring them to classes to um, go on things, but they never had me take seminars or things to improve my skills. Everything had to do with the men. and not me. And I had to service these people and understand the industry and all this. It was a great job, but those little things I noticed, you know? And so that was part of my lawsuit. And then the Justice Department also there, that they didn't carry the lawsuit. They all covered up. And that's just the Justice Department. I told them I had proof, I had photocopies, I sent them proof, and they did nothing. They I think their logic was, well, you left the island, so we don't have to work on the case. I kept in contact with them. I didn't drop anything. It's still really an active case. And 25 years later, nothing. They had my contact address, everything. It was one of the worst experiences there. Awful. And I share this because ladies and men can become victims. And when it comes to sexual harassment, why people don't want to speak out is this is the classic case, because they'll attack you. They'll do things. They'll try to physically hurt you, harass your money, no advancements. They'll have you do grudge work. They'll do anything to uproot you. And they succeeded in uprooting me there. But my health is more important than their nonsense. Yeah, that's why women don't tell. And women attack other women. And they do. And they're worse than the men. They were worse. Because I think their logic is, well, it probably happened, it happened to me. They're probably saying to other ladies. So why should you have the privilege to speak up and people care about your needs? I care about everybody's needs, but I think that's the logic. That's the only reason that I could see about this type of event. Why the women attack you. Because they went through it and they feel every other woman should go through it. And that's why on that island, why a lot of women are abused. They kill women there. They killed my coworker. She worked in the accounting department. She was maybe 2-3 years older than I was. She had a little child, maybe a 2-year-old child. She had a restraining order against her so-called boyfriend. He was to leave the island. He went to the airport, then something said no return. He returned. He never went on the plane. He went right back, somehow got in the house, took a hammer, and clobbered her to death. I saw her that Wednesday. That Sunday, she was dead. She was a nice lady. A nice lady. She was 33, I think, when she died. Yeah, 32, 33. I felt awful. Awful. The violence that happens to women there in St. Thomas. And you do have a lot of lesbians there, to my understanding. And I think that's why a lot of the lesbian people there, lesbianism, because of the abuse that the men give the ladies. And that the ladies that you work with, they don't care. And they just have a bad mentality. These women that I work with, those specific women I'm referring to in human resources and in some of the other departments. Yeah, they were bullying me big time. So that's why when I mentioned in that video that I did earlier this week about the incident on the train being harassed by these 2 women, that's why it affected me so badly. These women act like serpent beings, not human. It just something takes over their brain and they start going on the prowl, just like that company. And even in the military, it happened to me, sexual harassment in the military. and why they didn't court-martial that person. And he was known for, in the military, um, he was doing cocaine, I was told. He was stealing hubcaps from people's cars. We lived on the ship, but where we reported, you could have a car, on the base, commute to work and report to the ship. And he was stealing the people's hubcaps, all this truant stuff. And he was a young person. He was a teenager still. And there was a female masters at arms. That's like the police on the ship. All service people like myself, but that's their specialty. And it was a female master at arms who worked in there. And she said, we can't do anything about it. We can't stop him. I said, I heard many things about that same individual. He would go in the woman's bathroom and expose his genitalia to the women. And he's not arrested. And this is the masters. The time when I went in there, it had the female in there, but mostly men work for the masters at arms. But at that particular shift, the lady worked there, and I knew of her. She was a nice lady. She said her hands are tied pretty much. She couldn't do a thing about it. So I don't know what's going on. I don't know. It's like, let's do this. Let's do this to the ladies. And now with the fighting now, men are getting raped. Men and women are being predated against their own. It's not the opposition, the other country. No. U.S. military are attacking themselves, their buddies. So it's a world problem. It's a problem with all industry, and we just got to speak up. Yeah, I tried to speak up, and I was squashed. Well, one thing, the guys, the two guys from on the job in St. Thomas, I don't even remember their name. I don't remember their full name. But I don't know whether they're still there. But the guy, my boss, he's dead. I found out he died around. It was 2 years after he died. I heard about the incident. I had called St. Thomas, one of the ladies I knew there, and she relayed to me that he had passed away of brain cancer. Yeah. They said he died painful. And he would call the office, he would be crying. Wow. Isn't that something? Isn't that something? And I had respected him as a boss initially. I loved that job. And it ended there. Yep. So people do speak out, and sometimes they're not heard, and they're squashed. So that's my commentary about sexual harassment, the different industries. It's in all industries. I just say ladies especially, and men too. Men are harassed too. We're all important, and I know someone sees your pain. And I'm sorry about all the things that you're encountering also, just like myself. There's strength in numbers. Somehow, buddy with someone, protect each other. Get evidence. Take evidence with you. Yep. Now they have, cell phones. Back then they didn't have cell phones. And these devices, recording devices. Take them with you. Hide them in your pocket or something. So you can get evidence and talk about it. Because when you talk about it, then there's accountability. But I don't say try to target someone and say, well, it's accountability. People who, management, accountability. Okay? So that's my advice on the subject of sexual harassment. And again, there's strength in numbers. Stay strong. Thank you for listening. Bye bye.